Assalamu alaikum and good morning to all of you, whoever are online and whoever will be listening to this in recording. So today, in today's episode of Tuesdays with Dr. T, I am bringing you Autism Guthealth, and the person behind that is Wes. I am going to be calling her right away. So before we jump in, I want to tell you guys about something. So let me pull her up first. Okay, so right. So here we go. So she is mother of Jojo. There she
Wait, wait,
is,
wait. I
9-year-old.
have to tell.
That's
I
the
have
back.
to tell you. I
How are
have to
you
tell you.
doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. So I was just kind of introducing you when you jumped in. So she has a 9-year-old, right, Jojo?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we are going to be talking a lot about Jojo. The first thing I want to know is this. It's a hard question, but
Okay, go ahead.
what's the hardest thing that you did as an autism mom?
Oh, I have a lot. So I have a lot. One that comes to mind quickly
Mm-hmm.
is helping him navigate the bullying world, right? Especially when he was in preschool, he used to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So, even though preschool is a lot of fun, right? There were, because he was nonverbal, it was really hard,
Mm-mm.
um, for him to navigate it. That was the hardest thing, like getting the right resources for him,
Mm-hmm.
um, to navigate it. And the most, actually, no, the one that is harder is getting him to healing. Wow, that has been the hardest thing in my life, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
In my life, generally, forget about breakups, forget,
Yeah.
forget about losing a family member. That getting him from full-blown autism
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis level 2 to
Mm-hmm.
where he is now has been really the hardest.
Mm-hmm. So here's
Mm-hmm.
another thing. So a lot of the mothers I have seen from both from my personal life and then all working with all the other mom that I have worked with is this.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, like I would say like 100% of the time, it's our duty somehow to work with the child. It's rarely
Mm-hmm.
the dad's duty, and I'm not sure whether it's just they being boys, or they don't understand, or they have their own trauma and all of those things. But mostly, it's our job to move
Mm-hmm.
forward. So, how was that journey for you?
Right. So for me, I was a single mother.
Mm-hmm.
Jojo and our father separated when Jojo was like less than a year old. Right. So I have basically been a single mother through his diagnosis, through his recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't need to think about somebody else helping. It has always been in my psyche, like I'm the only one available to help him. There is nobody else, right? And so I just went with the flow. I feel like when you have somebody there, you always will be relying or thinking, like, why are you not helping me? Why, part of this his life, and there's that friction. But I didn't have that. I had to make all the decisions myself, independently. Didn't need to consult anyone. So it was hard to do it as a single mom. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It is hard, right? I
Very
feel like
hard.
even for a two parent family home, it is hard. But as a single mom, it was hard. But I just kept going on with it because for me, the alternative is the hardest. The alternative will be the hardest, and I couldn't see my child in the alternative, right? And so I just went on with it.
Yeah, Anika says the same thing. That's exactly true. The women own the responsibility of to our fullest, and another partner feels that we are just the best advocate. So here's the thing: even though you are a single mom, me,
Mm-hmm.
I am not a single mother. I have my husband, but I feel like we have pretty much similar struggles all over the world.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
give all of those mother who is listening to you and who will be listening to you that inspiration on how to be that mom or that caregiver, even if you don't have the support from anybody around.
So here's what I tell my clients, right? Having a child on the spectrum is like having 10 children,
Mm-mm.
right? They
Yeah.
need you consistently, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to take a step back and recognize, like, is this going to be their life for the rest of their lives? Like, do you want this to be their lives for 10 years, 20 years? I couldn't see myself listening to my son hum consistently
Mm-hmm.
or grind his teeth consistently, right? I couldn't see myself listening to that consistently. And so, or couldn't see him like ticking consistently or doing, having silent seizures consistently. And so I said to myself, I do not have a choice, right? I would I would rather use 6 months to 1 year or 2 years to get to the bottom of what is happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
Than a lifetime of struggles for him, right?
Yeah.
And so that is where, for me personally, that is where my inspiration came from,
For
right?
sure.
So, because I have seen other parents recover their children one way or
Yeah.
the other, however we want to define it. And so those kids were more severe than mine. And so for me, the inspiration was, it's either I get on, heal my child, right? Psych myself up, right? Yes, it's difficult, but I wanted to see the glory at the end, right? And that is what I'm enjoying now. That is what I wanted to see is what I am seeing now. And it
Mm-hmm.
has been worth the struggle, right? Because I know a lot of parents who are still struggling, even with teenage children who were not healed, even though they're talking, even though they are communicating, right? They
Mm-hmm.
still struggle in a lot of executive functioning skills, right? And so I didn't want that for my child, and I know he doesn't want that for himself. Now that he's talking, right? He doesn't want that. Now that he can express himself, I know he doesn't want that for himself. So um the inspiration is the other alternative is bad.
It's like
And that, yes, and so that fueled me, right? That was my fuel to keep going until he gets to the point that he is now.
mm-hmm. How did you navigate through the people who says that you trying to help your child, not accepting his tics, his sensory issues, and then trying to change him, quote unquote, change him? How did you
Mhm.
navigate through those conversations
Oh, I see.
and backlash?
That's a good question. So, what is sensory really, right? What is sensory? It is not about me, it is about the child. For me, it is about him struggling, okay? Because
Mm-hmm.
if he's struggling, if consistently your child is turning the tap on or holding their ears, right? In public areas, or you have to turn off your house alarm because they are sensitive to it. Well, even if they live in the forest, the birds sing, they make noise, right?
Yeah.
The hens and cocks, they make noise in the morning. Now that we are in Africa, every morning we get woken up by the the sound of cock doo doo doo, right? They make
Mm-hmm.
noise, right? So even in nature there is noise.
Yeah.
So if your child is sensitive to noise, they'll be sensitive to noise in nature, right? It is a problem with the brain not balancing. So what I tell them is, it's not me changing my child. It's me helping my child to be able to manage the environment they are in, even if he was living in the forest,
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
right?
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
if I have to turn my alarm off,
Mm-hmm.
well, when he's in public school, the bell goes off. If there is an emergency, the bell goes off,
Yeah.
right? If there's
Yeah.
an emergency, the bell goes off. So he's gonna have sensory issues if the bell goes off and there's an emergency, and he's trying to figure out the sensory issues, trying to manage the sensory issues from the alarm of the school bell, right? Plus all the chaos happening, right? That is will be too much for a child. So there's nothing wrong with me healing my child's brain to the point where the brain will naturally balance itself when there is a bell going off and he is not overwhelmed by it.
Mm-mm.
right?
And it's
So
not actually
those
about
are the
forcing the child. It's not actually about forcing the child to be something he's not, because I'm not stopping the child from steaming. What I'm doing
things.
is I'm helping the child to feel less sensory towards those,
Right.
outside stuff. So you are what actually you are doing is, as a neurodiverse myself, if I have loud sound or things, it actually grates in my nerves. Okay, I literally
Mhm.
feel like somebody is um, sandpapering my brains out. So that's
Right.
when I understand that's the same feeling my son is also having. So if I am just saying like, okay, don't make sound, or I make him stay in a soundproof home, that's not gonna help him anyway, because that's not
No,
really helping him being a successful person, right? So
exactly.
for those people, okay, yeah, and advocate people around. So I want to say this, and the reason why we connected, the reason why you and me connected, because we talk about gut health a lot, and we have the similar sort of belief that our children needs support and needs help. So here's my next question. What's your take on management versus really going to the root cause and helping your child? Managing
Oh,
autism.
right. So money. So there is a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
For my son, he was nonverbal until 4, right? We were managing the autism. Managing the autism is basically like, okay, he has sensory issues. Let's buy him
Sensory
earplugs,
toy.
or
Let's buy
right?
him weighted candle.
Let's turn off our alarm. So we would turn off the alarm in the house. I didn't have the alarm in my house to turn it off, right? Or he has silent seizures. So let's just leave him to have the silent seizures. When he come out of it, he's out of it. Okay, because you can call him 10 times when he's having those seizures. He's not gonna be there. So that is managing autism, right? Or managing autism is he has constipation. Let's give him prophylactic, or let's give him some antacid, and then it will keep coming back. It will go today, but then tomorrow it's coming back. That is managing autism. Or he doesn't have social skills. He doesn't have those productive social skills because he has anxiety, meeting new
OCD.
people, or so. But then let's get him therapy, and let's have the therapist help him to interact with the environment. That is managing autism, right?
Mhm.
Um, and for me, I couldn't see myself doing that.
Why?
That is
Why
too
couldn't you
much.
see
It's
yourself
too
doing
much logistics, right? It is just too much logistics to do it. It's just too much. It's just
Number
too
one,
much.
it's too much, and number two, it's actually we are making our child dependent on us or the therapist. We are not making them
Right.
independent.
Right, they are dependent on the environment, they are dependent on people, they are
Yes.
dependent on me in a lot of ways. Well, it's just too much headache for me. So I had to get to the root bottom of it. I had to understand, why is my child behaving this way? What is making him close his ears when we are in a public place, right?
Mhm.
And it's not normal that he's doing that for me, right? He's a child. When he's in a public place, or when he's in a theme park, he's supposed to have fun and enjoy it, not to be afraid to close his ears, right? So me giving him some medicine for him to manage, for him to be able to go through the flow, it doesn't make sense to me. So I had to get to the root bottom of it. that
Mhm.
and that root bottom, getting to the root bottom and uprooting those root causes, really became the domino effect for us, right? And now he he's not sensitive to a lot of things, not sensitive to light, sensitive to noise. He actually is more noisier than anybody, right? Right. So getting to those root causes is totally different. It really removes the situation, the issue at hand that you're trying to deal with. It removes it and gets the child to really true healing, where the child is not consistently figuring out how to manage certain things, or the parents or family caregiver is not consistently trying to figure out how to manage it, right? So
Mhm.
that is the bottom of it. For me, getting to the root cause is really using biomedical root cause, because everything that happens to us is biomedical, whether we like it or not. Yes, the environment plays a role, but
Yeah.
the environment affect the bio because the environment interacts with our biomedical bodies, right, and affect it. So I had to get to the root causes. I had to get to that point to really get my son to where he is now.
Mm-hmm. I have an interesting question for you now. The thing is, a lot of us say that we don't have enough support. We don't have enough support. We don't have husbandal support. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough time
Mm-hmm.
or energy. So you, as a single mom, obviously you did not have a boatload of money to work with, right? But you still were resourceful. So how can you make it as? How can you summarize the fact that how you managed the resources, how you became resourceful even though you were a single mom and helped your child?
So obviously, being a single mom doesn't necessarily mean like you are not financially stable, financially equipped, right? Because so you can be in a two from parent home where they are still not financially stable, right?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, so I think the question really is how do you manage all the financial stress, right? Because especially if you're going on this journey, how do
Mm-hmm.
you manage the financial stress? So a lot of what I tell most of my clients, right, which is working is I first of all, disclaimer, I am not against therapy, right? I know therapy is a prescription that is given usually to most families, right? And therapy equally costs a lot, you
Yeah.
know, and therapy is managing symptoms. It's not solving the symptom, right? Removing
Mm-hmm.
the symptom.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell my families, if you can do both, that's excellent, right? If you can do therapy and you can do the biomedical, that's excellent. But you want to transition your resources to where is going to address the real issue, right? And then once that is addressed, you can go back to therapy and then kind of let the therapy do what it needs to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that is the first, usually the first thing I tell the families, right? Because you can still do the therapy and the problem is still there. And the funny enough about symptoms with autism is the problem once the therapist like kind of like okay they are tiptoeing or they keep telling them not to tiptoe and then they stop tiptoeing, that core root cause of the tiptoe was not solved, and so that symptom manifests into another thing because the child learns to use another way of like of what that problem is. You know, it manifests in another behavior. That behavior doesn't necessarily go, especially if
Mm-hmm.
they have OCD and they had OCD about certain thing, about certain activity. It is not going, but it will manifest into another thing, right? So your best bet is to channel those resources into the root problem. Once you have solved those root problems, I mean, even to 60% solution, once you know that, then you can go back into therapy. That's one thing that I tell them. The other thing is the root cause. When you're doing the biomedical, the root causes can be a lot. So you work with your coach or whoever, whether you're not working with a coach, whether you're working with a coach or not, right? You identify what are my children's present, what is my child's present symptoms, right? What is the most important symptoms that I really want to knock her off, right? So for us, it was a gut issue because
Mm-hmm.
we were healing so many symptoms, but there were certain major symptoms that were still there, right? And for us, it was the gut issues. Once we focused on the gut, the domino effect happening, right? Everything started to fall, other things started to fall in place, right? Or other issues that we've been trying to solve for so long started to fall in place. So I tell families you gotta identify what are the present symptoms, those most important symptoms that you and your partner want to solve for. Identify those, identify what the root causes, and heal that from there. There are so many root causes. You just have to identify which one is really aligned to the thing that you want to solve for, the most pressing one you want to solve for, and then heal from there. So that will be the second talk. And then when it comes to when you're doing the biomedical and it comes to like shopping for organic foods is expensive. especially in the developed world, is really expensive. So, what I do most of the time is, I'm part of the farming community, right? Where you are able to get food stuff at a very low cost, like a CSA, right? You join a CSA where you're able to get a food stuff at a very low cost, or you just shop in a most budget friendly way and do the best that you can to help your child, because regardless of what you do, it's expensive.
Exactly. Whichever
You
is actually expensive.
mm-hmm,
First
mm-hmm.
thing you need to do, I think, is first of all, sit down and sit with your partner, or even if you don't have a partner, and track your costs, track your expenditures. Wherever you are tracking, when you track, you actually understand, oh, this is the way where I spend like $50, which didn't have to be spent. I could have done this or other alternatives. So you will actually find out a lot of solutions in your own hands when you have the right mindset. And talk about mindsets. So you already gave us a few very important points. I want you to now tell us a bit on how you work through the gut healing part, or what you can suggest to our community who's listening, how they can help their child with the gut health.
Okay, so I'm gonna break it down. I don't want to be so technical, so I'm gonna break it down in a more layman's terms so where anyone can understand, right? One thing, whilst I was going through this journey and learning, one basic thing that I learned was that the neurotransmitters, the two main neurotransmitters that is in our brain is in our gut, right? And so when the gut is not functioning, it affects that neurotransmitter, right? They are very much connected, And so what I do is, so if the gut has any form of disease, right, whether it is constipation, yeast, candida, parasite, whatever disease it is, you want to uproot that disease off first, right? And also, one other thing I tell my client most of the time is that most of the time our children are not getting enough nutrition, specifically to the brain, right? They are lacking nutrition to the special organs that are needed for them to develop in the way that they are supposed to develop. And nutrition happens where? It happens through digestion, right? Basically, if the digestion is not correct, nutrition is not going to be correct, right? So you want to focus on digestion, right? And how do you focus on digestion? If there's disease in the gut, digestion doesn't happen. It's
Yes.
just as simple as that, right? So again, you go back to the disease that is sitting in the gut, remove that disease from there and enable digestion to happen, right? And so someone asked me, what are those diseases? Constipation is a disease of the gut. It's one of the common diseases like that
Even
happen,
diarrhea.
right? And diarrhea, right? That happens to children on the spectrum, right? How do you solve for that? Well, we don't solve for it with using antacid, because antacid is not uprooting it. Right. Basically, for us, constipation is because it's mostly undigested food, right? That is sitting in there. So how do you get it to digest? You support it with digestive enzymes, You make sure the child is not eating foods that are not digested, like gluten, right? Because the microbiome, our children don't have that microbiome. And microbiome was learning about a whole microbiome structures and species is such an eye-opener, right? Eye-opener. So, if most of our children don't have the right microbiomes to digest the food, right, or to break down the food, because when we eat, it's the microbiome that is eating. It's not us that is eating the food. So if they don't have those right microbiome, you gotta support the gut with the right microbiome. And there is also bad microbiome, right? Good and bad. You want to remove the bad microbiome, right? Through enzymes or whatever treatment it is that you're using, you want to remove those, and so that the digestion can take place. Once digestion is taking place at its optimal level, nutrition absorption is high, right? So gut health has been very critical to all of all of our healing programs. Gut health has been really critical, because when I started, it took me like 3 years. When I started healing my child, it took me a long time to really get to the whole gut issue, right? Because we were just going round and round about, I'm like, oh, we are doing heavy metal detox, and he's still having these certain symptoms. What's going on? We are doing chelation, we are doing this, we are doing that. He's still having these issues, right? But once we were able to tackle his gut, it was just like magic. It was so magical, right? So that's I have so much to say about the gut, but I can go on and on and on. I
We
can
can
go
do
on
part
and
two because, as you
I
said,
can
you
go
are
on and
back,
on and
right?
on with it, right? But yeah, that was our main issue. And that once that was solved, people are like, when you eat, for example, when you eat, people are like, when you eat, you still be bloated. I said, no, that's not normal. Now, my child, now he eats, his stomach is still flat. Right? I said, that's not normal that you eat, you're bloated. If your child is bloating, they are having gut issues, right? It means the food you're feeding them is making them bloat, or they don't have the microbiome to help with that. So you got to support the gut with those enzymes that is needed to really break down the food for them.
Definitely, definitely. So we are kind of wrapping up because you said we don't have much time. You're going back
Right.
today? You're going back to the US today? You're on your way. Okay. As a wrap up, what are your top 5 tips for us who wants to help our
Understanding root causes. That's my first one. You gotta understand your children's symptoms and the root cause, right?
Mhm.
Don't try and just manage it, because again, it's gonna manifest into something else. Once you understand the root cause, you do everything in your power to find the solution to that root cause, right? That would be my second tip: finding the solution to that root cause. And then my third tip is really also focusing on play. Right, majority of the time we do my biomedical and we forget about the play part, right? Focusing on play, because play really helps with neuroplasticity, to really help the child in engaging in the environment that they are naturally, right? And helping the brain heal faster. I tell my clients, if biomedical is the cake, play is the icing on the cake, right? You
Yeah.
have to focus on play. If you have a therapist coming to your home, make sure the therapist is not just doing one-on-one, sitting at the table, doing a lot of one-on-one, but they're really doing floor play, running around, play, out play. They are going here, they're doing this, right? A lot of engagement with the child, to support the child. My fourth tip will be, don't think your child is on the same trajectory as every child, right? Every child has their own learning curve. And through that, you also want to understand how your child is learning. Children on the spectrum learn very differently from a lot of children. Neurodiverse, that's what we talk about, right? Understanding how your child is learning. If your child is not doing well in school, you got to understand, how do they learn and how do you support it? They might be a visual learner, they might be a kinesthetic learner, they might be a tactile learner, or even a listening learner, right? However your child learning, it is you, the parents, responsibility to
Mhm.
observe that and help your child, or help whoever is helping your child, because those are helping our children. They are in our children's life for a few hours in a day, right? But we are responsible for observing that and helping those people, those that are caregivers around our children, to understand that, to support our children, because majority of the time we are trying to let children on the spectrum, or even children in general, fit into a certain box, right? Without really working with them from where they are. That would be my fourth tip. My fifth tip is, as a parent, you got to take care of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Self care. I am very guilty of that. I take care of my children and I rarely take care of myself, but I am consciously reminding myself to take care of myself, because if
Mhm.
I'm not healthy, if I'm not mentally well, I can't really execute. And a lot of people rely on me to help them. So that would be my fifth tip as a parent with a child on the spectrum.
Beautiful. I I have to say there is not a single word you say that didn't resonate with me. or I didn't try on myself. So yeah, I'm totally on point with you. I would love to do a second part with you in depth, where we can go in depth. And for that, I will ask our audience, if they have any specific questions for you. But I thank you a lot from all of our community. Very much for being here today and giving us time, even though you were just shutting in and out. I will see you guys in the next one. And
Right.
how can people reach you? How can people reach you?
Okay, absolutely. They can reach me on Autism Guthealth on my page. There's a contact number that they can DM me. I'm always available to answer as many questions as I can within my capacity. They can reach me. They're definitely on my IG page. I'm more active on IG for some reason than any other platform.
It's
So
interesting.
if you want to, I know. If you want to reach me quickly, IG is the best place to reach me quickly.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
everyone
having
for listening
me.
here. I'll see you
Yeah.
guys in the next one.
Yes, we'll do this again. Thank you so much.
Safe journey. Take care.
Thank you.
And
Take
my
care.
love to you.
Bye-bye. Sure. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.